Housing bubble fears in the news. Don't buy. It's a terrible time to buy. We've been hearing this for the past 7-8 years on the news. They keep telling us, don't buy. We're in a bubble. Housing is bad. It's a bad investment. Don't do it. Let me just get to the facts. I'm going to share a few news headlines from a popular news reporter. You may have heard of her, Diana Olick. She's been preaching for years that you should absolutely not buy a house. So I'm going to show you some real data, some real numbers on what did happen and why you should really just stop listening to the news. It's like this, right? Their whole thing is they need clicks, they need views, they want people to chime in. And so one of the biggest sellers is negativity and fear, unfortunately. And so that's what they're going to keep preaching. They don't have your best interest in mind. I'm sharing this information because I've personally lived through it. I was one of those people that bought a house when everybody told me not to, that it was a bad idea. I should wait. Interest rates at the time were high. I remember when I bought my very first house, I want to say it was like 6.5%. And I bought in 2009. I remember thinking at the time, man, I don't know if I can afford this. I backed out once and then I ended up buying a house, and honestly it was one of the smartest things I ever did, which is why I'm in mortgage now and why I do these videos so that I can share that information with everybody else. So when I bought my first house, keep in mind I was a teller at a bank making $12 an hour. I remember purchasing the house that I bought. I want to say interest rates were around 6.5%. Keep in mind price was like $160, and at the time that was high for me. And the only house I could afford was 30 minutes away from where I worked. And so I knew I was gonna have to commute. I bought in the middle of freaking nowhere. I had a lot of friends tell me, dude, like, I don't know if you should be buying right now. It doesn't make sense. But for me, I was like, you know what? I'm here for the long run. Like, I was just starting my, what I thought was my career at the time. But I remember going in thinking, man, this is a lot. I think my payment was like $1,400 or $1,500, which was probably 80% of my paycheck at the time. And I was a little scared. I was like, man, is this a good idea? And they were preaching that whole thing. Yeah, you can refinance a year later. I mean, I got the payment down a couple $100, but luckily I was making more money at the time and it all made sense. The thing is, you have to just not listen to what the news is saying. So today I want to share some headlines. These are actual real headlines. First headline I want to share was back in October 2015. Housing today is a bubble larger than 2006. Do not buy. So your average home price back in 2015 was around $300K. If you would have listened, here's what you would have missed out on. Because that year, home appreciation, the following year was up 5.1% on a national level. It was actually probably a little bit higher here in Arizona, but nationally, the average appreciation was 5.1%, meaning that $300,000 house that you didn't buy is now worth $315,000. You missed out on $15,000 in equity if you would have listened to the news. So let's fast forward to 2016. 2016, in August, the news said, we're in a new housing bubble. Don't buy right now. It's not worth it. Well, we saw 5.4 appreciation that year. So if we look at that same $300,000 house, it went up $15,000. It went up another $17,000. $332,000 that home is now worth. So things are more expensive. Fast forward, November of 2017, new headline. You ready for it? Home ownership doesn't build wealth, study finds. Really? Doesn't build wealth, study finds? Because based on that year, appreciation was actually up 6.1%, meaning you earned another $20,000 in equity. So that $300,000 house back in 2015 is now worth $353,000. All right, let's keep going. September 2018. It's better to rent than to buy in today's housing market. Really? It's better to rent? Because we saw another 4.1% increase in overall home appreciation that year, which means $14,000 added to that $353,000. $367,000 is now what that house is worth. July 2019, the housing market is about to shift for buyers in a bad way. Man, talk about missing the mark. 2018, you guys remember that? Pre-COVID, before everything went crazy? We saw another 4% appreciation that year in overall home value. Another 15 grand added to that $300K, $382,000. If you've been shopping since 2015, you've missed out on $82,000 worth of equity. Let's keep going. December of 19, later that same year. Next year will be hard on the housing market, especially in the big cities. All right, well, this is where it gets crazy because we all know 2019 to 2020, we saw a 16% appreciation in home values. 16%, double digits, guys, making it a whopping $61,000 in equity on that $300,000 house, which is now worth $443,000. Let's fast forward to just last year, July of last year, the headline, housing boom is over as new sales fall to pandemic low. You know what appreciation was? 18%. Another 80 grand. That $300,000 house back in 2015 is now worth $523,000. And they're still doing it today. They're still sharing the same information. Housing is bad. It's a bad investment. Don't get into it. You're gonna lose your shirt. We're talking hundreds and thousands of dollars just in the past 7 years. Stop listening to the news. Look at real data. When everybody else is pessimistic and not buying, that's when you should be buying. The other time I bought a house, when everybody told me not to, April of 2020. We all remember what happened in April of 2020, right? The freaking COVID pandemic. Everything got shut down. We were on quarantine. We were at home. You know what I did? I went and bought a house. I went and bought my very first investment property. That home in the last 2 years has more than doubled in value, on top of getting a killer interest rate when I bought it. I bought it at a time when everybody else was afraid to buy it. I bought in 2020. I was probably one of the very few people. I think I got it $30,000 under asking price, and I got $5,000 in seller concessions to cover my closing costs. That's the opportunity we have right now. Right now, we're at the end of 2022 when everybody is saying it's bad. And I get it, interest rates are higher, it sucks. Everything is more expensive, but you can negotiate a sales price right now. You can get seller concessions. You can get somebody to pay for closing costs to buy your interest rate down for an entire year or even 2 years. There are tons of options out there. So stop letting the media dictate how you're going to live your life and the choices that you are going to do. Don't let the media fool you into not buying a house. They don't have your back. I do, and I'll be real. I'm doing these so that you'll call me so that we can get you pre-qualified so that I can do the loan for you. I have no hidden agenda. That's absolutely what I'm sharing this information for. But even if you don't do it through me, if you're in a state where I don't offer financing, call a loan officer, call a real estate agent. The opportunity right now is prime because everybody else is waiting to see what happens. Don't be that person that waits. Get in now, get your house, buy real estate, and wait. Don't wait and buy real estate. Thanks, guys.